just what people fear. Now I got the information that I needed now.
Greetings, Sentinels! This is Universe Unique, and today, the truth comes to light. Everyone believed that Thanos' saga ended in Avengers Endgame, that the final snap was the definitive moment, but Marvel never plays that clean. Now, in the middle of filming Avengers, Doomsday and Secret Wars, a bomb has dropped. Josh Brolin has confirmed direct conversations with the Russo brothers about the return of the Mad Titan. And we are not talking about a simple cameo or random flashback. It is something much bigger, something that could rewrite the next several years of the MCU. Before we dive into this puzzle, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We are about to reach a historic milestone in subscribers, and your support right now makes a real difference. By subscribing, you officially join this secret line of Sentinels who always receive the analysis before anyone else. Here, you do not simply watch. You participate. You help unravel the multiverse. And pay attention. This return of Thanos is not just another nostalgic move. It connects to cancelled projects, behind-the-scenes strategic decisions, and the possibility of one of the most epic battles ever seen in cinema. Does that sound exaggerated? Then wait until I show you the details no one is talking about, because once they come to light, everyone's perception of Marvel's next phase is going to change. Now, I want you to comment below which city and country you are watching this video from. I will read everyone, because the Sentinel multiverse is global, and each comment helps strengthen our community. If this content is connecting you with the truths of the multiverse, leave a like and join our secret subscriber line. And that brings us to the first inevitable question. Did Thanos truly return? Or did he never leave the game? The most intriguing point about Josh Brolin's speech is not only the return of Thanos, but rather the uncertainty of where exactly he will appear. He made it clear that he has been in constant contact with the Russo brothers since the end of Endgame, and that these conversations involve not only Doomsday, but also Secret Wars. This lack of definition is not by chance. Within the logic of Marvel, this opens up space for creative maneuvers and strategic decisions that can change the entire tone of Phase 6. There is a little discussed detail that makes all the difference. Robert Downey Jr. only agreed to return as Doctor Doom in Avengers Doomsday on the condition that the Russo brothers were also brought back to direct. This requirement completely changes the game, because it is not just a contractual negotiation. It is a move that reinstates the same creative core that led the Infinity Saga to its peak. In other words, Marvel has recreated the team that turned Thanos into the most iconic villain in modern cinema. This uncertainty between Doomsday and Secret Wars may seem technical, but ultimately reveals a choice of narrative impact. If the return happens in Doomsday, it could be just a foreshadowing, a quick appearance that sets the stage. But if the comeback is directly in Secret Wars, it means that the studio is willing to adapt some of the most iconic pages of the comics, especially the direct confrontation between Thanos and the God Emperor Doom. And here is where the detail comes in. Everything changes. In the comics, Thanos underestimates Doom, believing he can defeat him even without the Infinity Gauntlet, and pays the price in a brutal way. The silence surrounding which movie will actually bring this confrontation is not just natural suspense, it's calculation. Because if Marvel delivers too early that Doom and Thanos will face each other, it loses the shock value when the audience watches. That's why Brolin's hesitation to reveal details may be the smartest way to keep the secret. But there's still an element that few are realizing. This decision could set the tone for the next MCU twist, just like Infinity War did with the snap. The difference is that now the conflict is villain against villain. But before we get to this epic battle, there's a detail that no one is talking about. And that's what will lead us to the next point. When talking about Thanos' return, it's not just about imagining a discrete participation. What really catches the attention is the possibility of seeing one of the most iconic scenes from Secret Wars in the comics on the big screen. The confrontation between Thanos and the God Emperor Doom. This clash, created by Jonathan Hickman in 2015, is one of the most brutal moments in modern Marvel, and carries a symbolic weight that the cinema has not dared to explore yet. In the comics, all heroes and villains end up in Battleworld, a collage of universes created by Doom after absorbing the power of the Beyonders. In this scenario, Thanos stands before Doom with his usual arrogance, and believing he can defeat him even without the Infinity Gauntlet. Doom, already elevated to an almost divine level, doesn't even consider Thanos a real threat. The result is a massacre in seconds. Doom tears Thanos' skeleton with his own hands, in one of the most shocking and unforgettable panels in Marvel. Bringing this scene to the cinema would have an impact equivalent to the snap of Infinity War, not only because it involves two of the greatest villains in history, but because it would represent a drastic turn of expectations. The audience already knows Thanos as the greatest threat the Avengers have faced. Putting him in front of Doom and showing his defeat in seconds would be the perfect way to elevate Destiny to an even more terrifying and unbeatable level, establishing him as the new central figure of the MCU. This duel also speaks to the current logic of Marvel. After so many criticisms of the excess of generic villains, bringing back the Mad Titan only to be crushed by a greater power is a clear strategy of contrast. And here's the detail that few realize. Marvel doesn't need to adapt Secret Wars literally. They can modify the context, alter the characters present, but if they preserve this scene, they will have in their hands a moment of cinematic shock comparable to the studio's greatest twists. But there is a piece in this chessboard that can completely change what we expect. Because what if the Thanos facing Doom is not the same as we know? There is a dark variant that has already been explored in the comics, and it might be exactly what Marvel is preparing. The hypothesis that changes the game is simple and uncomfortable. The Thanos that returns may not be the same one who fell in Vormir or was reduced to dust at the end of Endgame, but the Thanos who won. In Donny Cates' comics, in the Thanos Wins arc, the old sovereign known as King Thanos emerges, an aged, bearded titan, crowned by Carnage itself, ruling a universe in ruins with the cosmic Ghost Rider by his side. This version does not seek balance, it is the end of the line. And here is the point that explains why this variant makes sense for the cinema. It raises the stakes without undoing the past, because it operates as a variant in a parallel reality, preserving the MCU canon, and, at the same time, showing what happens when Thanos finally gets everything he wanted. The existence of a Thanos who won has already been tested outside the movies. Disney introduced in the park's ecosystem a multiversal interpretation of the character, with a more regal look and the concept of a Titan who triumphed over the heroes. Although it is not canonical to the movies, this visual laboratory validates the idea for the general public. It is familiar, it is recognizable, and it immediately communicates the difference in scale. In terms of cinematic language, a single well-composed frame, the throne, the white beard, the weary look, would be enough for the audience to understand that this is not the villain of 2018, and it is precisely in this detail that almost nobody is noticing. Someone plays, Marvel doesn't need to reintroduce the whole balance philosophy. It can contrast. On one side, Doom's cold realism. On the other, the victorious nihilism of an unrestrained Thanos. The practical application within Doomsday and Secret Wars would be surgical. In Doomsday, King Thanos can function as an omen, a brief encounter, perhaps through a crack or multiversal record, showing the fate if the heroes fail, a version where the Titan went too far without needing the gauntlet. In Secret Wars, he becomes a chess piece. He doesn't need to lead the narrative, just collide with Doom to measure power scales and prepare the audience for the climax. In Hickman's comics, Doom reduces Thanos to dust in seconds. If the movie chooses an older and even more dangerous variant, the visual and thematic shock amplifies, elevating Doom without humiliating the legacy of the original Thanos, because the confrontation occurs with another instance of the character. There is an additional reason for this choice to be attractive behind the scenes. Bringing Josh Brolin as a variant allows for occasional appearances, with dramatic gravity, without reopening the Infinity Odyssey. It is an elegant solution for balancing the agenda of stars, budget, and narrative focus on the new protagonists, while delivering a trailer magnet moment. And there is a fine-tuning that can make all the difference. King Thanos doesn't need to speak much. A silent appearance, a look that recognizes Doom as an equal or as an usurper, sustains the tension, and maintains the mystique of the character. The question remains that recontextualizes everything we've seen before. Why does this variant make so much sense now? Because several plans to explore the past and myth of the Titan have been abandoned or repositioned, and Marvel needs a visual and thematic shortcut to restore the weight of the name Thanos without diluting the Avengers' victory. And it is precisely at this point that the projects that were left behind come into play. Ideas that, if they had gone ahead, would have already paved the way for this return with a different texture. This opens the door to the next block. The return of the Mad Titan today seems inevitable, but it is worth remembering that Marvel has already tried to explore this character in several paths that never materialized. During Phase 4, At the height of the accelerated production for Disney+, one of the first projects considered was Eternals 2. The idea was to delve into Thanos' past as an Eternal of Titan, with a direct focus on his relationship with Eros, played by Harry Styles. This arc would have revealed the Titan's childhood, expanding the concept that the Eternals are basically machines created by the Celestials, and raising the question, how can an artificial entity generate offspring, as Aylar did when conceiving Thanos and Star Fox? The sequel even had concept arts of a young Thanos, nicknamed Thanos behind the scenes for his slimmer appearance, but it was shelved after the lukewarm performance of the first film. Another discarded plan was a limited series on the origin of Thanos, inspired by the comic book Thanos Rising by Jason Aaron. There, the narrative delves into the character's youth, his obsession with the entity Death, and the genesis of his journey in search of the Infinity Gauntlet. Marvel even flirted with this idea back in Phase 1, when there was a preliminary version of the Infinity Saga that would give more prominence to Mephisto as an ally and betrayer of Thanos, similar to what happens in the comic Infinity Gauntlet. This detail is crucial, because it explains why both Mephisto and the personification of Death have already been discreetly introduced in the MCU, with Sacha Baron Cohen and Aubrey Plaza taking on these roles. These cancelled projects show a clear hesitation from the studio. How to revisit Thanos without weakening the Avengers' victory in Endgame? The answer found was to save these ideas as supporting material for something bigger. Thus, the audience did not see the teenage version obsessed with death, nor the continuation of the Eternals arc, but these foundations are still available to be rescued in Secret Wars. Imagine the shock if Doom faces not only the Thanos we know, but an echo of that discarded past. The young version, or even the sovereign King Thanos, merging the ideas that remained in limbo. What seemed forgotten may actually be a trump card to elevate the dramatic weight of the next phase. And this is where we come to the central question. What will be Thanos' real role in the future of the MCU? Because more than nostalgia, its return can serve as the harbinger of the biggest reboot that Marvel has ever attempted. The return of Thanos should not be seen only as a gesture of nostalgia. In practice, it serves as preparation for the most delicate transition that Marvel has faced since 2008. Kevin Feige has made it clear in interviews and panels that Phase 7 will be a kind of reset, a soft reboot that will redefine how the X-Men, mutants, and other characters will be integrated into the MCU. Within this logic, bringing back the villain who symbolized the studio's peak is a way to close a cycle and, at the same time, signal that the next chapter will be even more radical. It is important to remember that Thanos is more than just a character. He represents the weight of a narrative that marked global cinema and redefined the idea of the ultimate villain. Placing him alongside Doom, or in any role within Secret Wars, is a symbolic gesture. It shows that the MCU acknowledges its past, but is willing to surpass it. The audience will see that, as great as Thanos was, there is now a more powerful, more strategic, and much crueler enemy. This sets the stage for Marvel to justify the narrative reboot without seeming like it is just discarding what it built before. Whether as King Thanos, as a lost variant in Battleworld, or even as a shadow of projects that never happened, his presence serves as a farewell, and at the same time, a harbinger. The return of the Mad Titan is not just a nostalgic callback, but a strategic move towards a new era in the MCU. It's not about repeating the past, but about showing what comes next. The big question is, would you like to see it coming back as the brutal threat we already know? Or do you prefer it to be reinvented as a strategic piece of this new multiverse? This answer may dictate how fans will see Marvel in the coming years. And here's the crucial point. We are approaching a historic milestone of subscribers. Each new subscription strengthens this channel and ensures that more Sentinels receive the analysis before everyone else. By subscribing, you not only support, you connect directly to the hidden truths of the multiverse. Now I want to hear from you. From which city, or even which country, are you watching this video? Leave it in the comments, because I will read them all. Our multiverse is made up of every voice that participates here. If this content made sense to you, go ahead and like, subscribe, and join our secret line of Sentinels. See you in the next video.